Hello and you're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV, where we analyze business and economic developments for the week and how they affect the average Nigerian. My name is Chamun Dabeng and I'll be your host. Now, the city of Abuja has been witnessing fresh fuel scarcity that has brought on queues that last for hours to navigate. Now, this according to the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMDPRA) was brought on by the major flood in Lokoja, Kogi State. Now, the flood has caused traffic so bad that it can be seen for miles. This has led to trucks being inevitably cut off and being unable to supply fuel to the FCT. Joining me today on the show to discuss this menacing issue is economist, financial expert, public affairs commentator, chief executive and chief economist of ARKK Economics and Data Limited, Dr. Samson Simon. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Samson, let me get your comments on, what has been going on as far as the flood in Lokoja and also the issues it's now bringing about.
Because it has not only affected activity, there are fatalities and people being displaced. But what we're discussing here is scarcity in the FCT, and according to Nigeria Downstream Regulatory Agency, it said that has really caused the scarcity of fuel. Has caused the scarcity of fuel in the FCT because vehicles could not pass through Lokoja to come to Abuja. In the meantime, they are trying to look for alternative routes to come to Abuja. And people should not panic because they suspect that things are going out. They begin to panic and they start going to filling stations to buy fuel.
Yeah.
So the government is not a general problem and nobody should. There is enough fuel to go around. Is a temporary problem and it will soon resolve. So basically that is what is happening.
All right, so before we continue on with our discussion, we do have a snippet of Nigerians out there talking about what is going on as far as the fuel scarcity is concerned and how it's affecting them. Let's take a look.
Fuel scarcity worsened in the Nigerian's federal capital city over the weekend, despite the repeated assurances from the government that the crisis will soon be over. Queues persisted in Abuja as people scrambled to get petrol for their cars and their electricity generators at a time of rising temperatures. The crisis, which has lingered for weeks and in some places like Abuja for several months, continued despite the federal government saying it has sufficient stock for distribution across the country. Motorists in Abuja are not pleased with the situation, which they said is worsening the economic outlook of the country.
This is not what we anticipated for. All we were thinking that democracy has come to stay. But with what we are seeing, it's a failure. It's a total failure. Each and every day, people woke up and you see different things. It's like a drama. Nigeria has become a drama. It's so dramatic.
So ever started from the 1st of October. I think there had been sign of it, but Sunday it wasn't really showing. But all of a sudden, yesterday,
The queue has become source of concern to all Nigerians. The queue has been long since in the morning that we came out here to sell our black markets. Some are not even allowing customers to purchase the product from their filling stations.
As we wake up, we see queue on filling station, and we don't know the thing that it causes it. So this suffering is too much for us in this country.
Some respondents explain that one of the reasons for the long queue at the fuel stations is because of the grounding of petrol-laden trucks in Lokoja due to the impact of erosion there.
From what I heard, they say tankers are not coming in because of the water flood along Lokoja-Abuja expressway.
I'm a black marketer and I'm here to hustle.
There is queue in the Nigeria. They say there is flood on the Lokoja. That is what caused this whole queue. The tanker there, more than 500 tankers are there. so they cannot cross to the north. That's what caused the queue.
So we don't want to use the word change. We want to use development. Nigerians should grow. Our political actors should think on a better way out for them to cough out this menace that we are in for. It's really a total menace.
They called on government to make the commodity more accessible and affordable, as to reduce the stress of queuing for the product within the city center.
All right, so you can see a lot of those frustrations seeping through from the Nigerians out there, and of course, it's with good cause. I mean, you can't, be sitting somewhere for hours on hours and not be upset about it. All right, so we have another guest in the studio with us, and he's the CEO of OG Capital, and he's also a financial advisor. You're welcome to the show. His name is OG Adoga. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, so what are your thoughts on the comments from Nigerians right now that we just saw?
Well, I would say this. I would say that what we're actually witnessing is the compounded effects of years and years of mismanagement, and years of or decades, if you like, of poor handling of our infrastructural positions. For example, a country like Nigeria, still relies heavily on one specific route to transport petroleum to a very large northern section of its populace, and it tells you something about the way we are as people. We are very reactive, right? We actually tend to look at the problem after it has actually happened, and we start trying to look for solutions. For instance, when is this really going to stop? When is this problem really going to be solved? If you look at what is happening in Lokoja right now, I feel like it is actually being underreported, because it's not just petroleum, right? It's every single thing that passes through Lokoja. And yesterday I was on Twitter and I saw an announcement from the Federal Road Safety Corps, and they were advising people to take it in an alternative route along Mokwa in Niger State to get to Abuja. That's a very big detour. That increases the cost of business. People need to get fuel to actually fund that trip. And what that does is that makes the ordinary man on the streets a little more desperate. And let's not even talk about the state of that particular road. So Nigerians have the right to be angry. But what I would actually say is this: when the time comes to actually make decisions, I feel like Nigerians still have the responsibility to make better decisions, because this is also a reflection of years and years of poor decision making on our part in choosing who leads us. Yeah, so this is actually my position. I think this has actually been it's been a long time coming. It's only a reflection of what we've been facing. If we have floods happening every year or every season, I don't think we should be surprised that this is happening right now. What happens next when maybe a supply chain route is blocked from Bauchi State to maybe it can't get to Plateau State? What happens? Same thing happens here. So this is a reflection of mismanagement culture, and it will continue happening until we stop relying on blind faith and just the goodwill of people. We need to actually put structures in place, and the economics of this fuel crisis is just really sad. For the umpteenth time, we're having a scarcity in Abuja, and it's not because of the lack of fuel. It is actually because of the inability for us to actually transport fuel from where it is available to where it is needed. Yeah, and that's really sad.
All right, so let's bring in Dr. Simon, back into the conversation. Now, you heard what Mr. OG just finished saying, and he was talking about so many other issues that is coming in as a result of the flood that's currently going on in Lokoja. So you're talking about the transportation of goods, the transportation of services, and so many other things. It's not just about the fuel. So the fuel scarcity is just a symptom of a bigger picture, of a bigger issue. Now, let me get your comments on that.
Yes, this is a major problem for the FCT in terms of scarcity. It's because there is only one way to getting this fuel across. So if there were alternative ways, assuming the pipelines were okay, you could transport they are being produced to the FCT and the northern part of Nigeria. That would have been another way of solving the problem. If we had trains working, and if we had other ways, even inland waterways, that would have solved the problem. But because we're solely dependent on our water for road transportation to get the fuel from where they are being produced to the north, and that's why this problem is becoming a huge issue. So I think the government needs to do something pertaining to infrastructure. We should not be so limited to one thing. We should have we should explore all of it. A chance something happens to one, we have other ways of getting things across. We should not be just one way of getting things done.
All right, so there are a couple of things that we put together, what you need to know about Nigeria's current flooding issue. Now, 23 of Africa's most populous countries, 36 states are affected by seasonal flooding, with northeastern states particularly hard hit this year. According to the House of Representatives, 80% of Nigerian farmers have suffered loss of revenue as a result of flooding. More than 150,000 people, of which about half are children, have been severely affected by floods in Niger and Nigeria in recent weeks. Pardon me, Niger State and Nigeria in recent weeks. Now, intense rainfall has affected communities along the Niger-Nigeria border, triggering flooding, which has washed away or damaged at least 14,900 homes. The 2022 floods have left around 37,633 houses destroyed or damaged. More than 300 people have died, 500 have been injured, and over 500,000 affected. More than 100,000 have been displaced and moved to temporary shelters, including schools and other public buildings or with host families. Climate change is costing Nigeria $100 billion per annum. From 2020 till now, climate change is already costing 15 trillion naira, representing 2 to 11% of the GDP. By 2050, climate change will be costing 69 trillion naira, representing 6 to 30% of the GDP. Now, let me throw this to my guests in the studio. What do you guys make of these figures here? Let me start off with you, OG.
All right, I think the figures are, well, from where I sit, I think they're a little bit underreported. Why I say this is because, when you're talking about 300 people dead, right? When you're talking about families displaced, right? That is on a scale of a war. That seems like maybe somebody, picked arms and decided to start shooting people. No. So it begins to look like, we are actually at war with nature. And right now, what we need to actually focus on is what are the other effects? What are the side effects of this problem? Now, let's not even go into the amount of farmland that has been destroyed. I have a friend who actually just reached out to me, and he has lost about 50 hectares of farmland in Kogi, and that's rice. He has lost 50 hectares of farmland. Now, if we look at the compounding effect of this particular situation, he actually received credit to farm that. Now, how does he repay back, right? How does he meet up with the responsibilities he has? So this actually destroys a huge opportunity to do business. So the impact of this flood and the seasonal flood is usually not felt immediately. It is actually felt by all of those who actually depend on the players who lose money, who lose resources, who lose stuff. And I think we've been saying that. I agree that government has to do something, but I think we've been saying that for quite a while. As a people, I don't know if we are serious, right? Because it is almost it's so easy to guess that every year there's going to be flood. It's so easy to guess, and it's so easy to guess where it's going to happen. I can literally tell you right now that there's going to be flood in Lekki every year, and people are aware. But it kind of feels like nobody's really, prepared to actually do anything about it. And we can always come back here and talk about it again. But it's almost, you can always just place a bet and say, there's going to be flood here. And it's really going to happen. Nowhere in the world do people behave like this. So, there is a sense of relaxation. There's this very comfortable, lackadaisical attitude to actually, protecting the lives of the people and taking care of things, and that has to go first of all before I actually start talking about moving forward.
Are you talking on the part of the government or the part of the people at this point?
The people themselves. One thing I know about governance is when the people actually disagree or decide not to agree with stuff, things don't change immediately. But you wouldn't have 20 years of flooding consistently in a specific area, there would actually be a little resistance, to some reforms and some policies that actually affect their lives directly. What's happening in Lokoja is actually pretty unfortunate. Food is not coming to Abuja. Nigerians are facing food inflation much more than everything else. Nigerians spend more than 50% of their income on food. So food inflation is the bigger problem here. And when you stop the flow of food to a region, you're impoverishing people. And that's what's going to happen right now. If we don't find a solution to what is happening in Lokoja right now, Lokoja is a confluent state. Everybody that has to go to Lagos or Kano has to pass through Lokoja at some point. That's a very big situation. So if people can't get past that point, they have to find alternate routes, and that's really expensive, and that increases the cost of the things they have to actually sell or buy.
I think we're even ignoring the fact that some of these routes may very well be quite dangerous for people to be passing through. And that's something that right now a lot of them are facing just to get their daily bread or move from one point to another. But let's move on to another discussion. Now, taking a look at these floods, now we do have the SDGs that we're planning to achieve by 2030. How far does this actually set us back? Dr. Dr. Simon, I would like to hear from you on that. When it comes to our SDG goals, how far is this flood issue setting Nigeria back? All right, it seems that we lost Dr. Okay, he's back.
All right. This is a serious problem, because we are already lagging when it comes to the SDG. And in terms of supply now, we have high food inflation. And with this flood, it's going to exacerbate the problem. All our major players in the agricultural sector in Nigeria, their vice president came out to say that Nigeria is known to us that Nigeria is a deficit rice producer. We need 7 million metric tons. We produce 5 million. And is responsible for a quarter of that. And their major farm in Nasarawa is affected by this. So that's a major farm. We're expecting to get worse. Then in poverty, we are talking about Olam is a major player. Their livelihoods will be affected. In terms of something that is going to cause a lot of damage. We are lagging when it comes to government needs to invest into infrastructure. Government to make the environment friendly for infrastructural development. If infrastructure will be there, I'll go a long way. Government should not try to even do everything by itself, but it should make the business environment friendly for all commerce. Then another thing is that Kogi should not be the only way for any business person to access either the FCT or other parts of the north. A lot of provisions should be made. We should not be solely dependent on one thing. And these things can be forecasts. They were actually forecasts that they are prepared. Individuals need to prepare, government needs to prepare as well. All these things are avoidable. But we have largely taken things, we treat things with levity, and that's why we are bearing the brunt of it. Sadly, many people are going to die, apart from the people that have died already, will be displaced. So many happen, and the hunger, for the inflation is high, is going to get worse. So
all right, it seems that we're having a bit of a connection issue. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking about minimum wage payments in Nigeria. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV. Once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng, and I'm still here with Dr. Samson Simon and OG Adoga. And we're currently moving on to another discussion, and we're taking a look at minimum wage payments in Nigeria. Now, back in 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari increased the minimum wage from 18,000 to 30,000 naira after facing a lot of pressure from organized labor. Now we're bringing back this discussion. Now, the reason why we're bringing it back is because right now we're currently looking at an inflation rate of 20.52%. And the worst part for a lot of people is really the fear of the unknown. At this point, we don't really know if the next figure is going to be higher than the present. A lot of people have predicted that the inflation rate could actually go higher than the 20.52%. And of course, money is now tight because the cost of goods and services has skyrocketed. Now, let's start off this discussion by actually playing this report first of all. So let's take a look.
Were not among those who benefited from the implementation of the 18,000 naira national minimum wage, nor the recently approved 30,000 naira national minimum wage, which some states of the Federation had since commenced implementation. However, this may be cheering news for the state civil servants, as the government is looking towards that direction, where the administration promised to soon start the implementation of the 30,000 naira national minimum wage come November 2022. Senator Hassan Nasiha, however, attributed the delay in the implementation of the national minimum wage to the problem of insecurity in the region.
We're here with the Labour members, Labour executives, for the purpose of implementation of 30,000 minimum wage. Alhamdulillah, with the interference of our leaders, God has made it a day today. And inshallah, He has made it possible to see how we can implement 30,000 minimum wage.
The governor has taken the day, because without his support, I couldn't have performed this. So we are implementing our 30,000 naira minimum wage in Zamfara, and inshallah, this will take effect from the month of November. All Zamfara state workers will now enjoy the minimum wage. We are grateful for the understanding, and inshallah, the government will live up to its expectations.
The state's chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Sani Halilu, said the Labour Union had withdrawn their 21-day ultimatum issued earlier to the state government to act on the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage or face a shutdown.
I am very much grateful that expectation become reality. That is to say, our expectation of getting our minimum wage as it is constitutionally is today a reality, because a memorandum of understanding is signed publicly before every government official, including the chairman committee on the minimum wage, the SSG, the head of service, and all stakeholders in the state, including media and the two labor centers.
Zamfara state government and the labour unions have agreed to work together to increase the state's internally generated revenue to sustain the welfare of civil servants and people of the state.
Well, as you can see, Zamfara State just implemented the 30,000 naira minimum wage. And at this point, we're currently talking about, finding a way to increase minimum wage while some other states are still lagging behind. Now, I want to know from my guests in the studio, what do you think? Is there a possibility of a higher minimum wage for Nigerian citizens at this point?
Well, call me funny, but I think that 30,000 naira minimum wage only reflects the reality of Nigeria as at 2010. As it is today, the minimum wage of 30,000 naira cannot afford, even the very basic things, for maybe 2-3 weeks. And to think that these people are people who are employed by government, you would think that government would be more eager to implement things that enable them to survive and to work. Let's look at it this way. In an event where you have a very low minimum wage, what you're actually doing is that you're ignoring the fact that the cost of surviving is increasing. You're ignoring that. And if the NLC has to issue an ultimatum before you actually have to implement that, it means that you're not really paying attention to the economic reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is this: Nigeria is getting expensive, really expensive for the common man, for a country that is heavily dependent on forex, on exchange, in terms of importation. We are looking at black market dollar becoming $1 becoming about 700 naira.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the basic things that we actually need to survive in our lives are actually getting expensive, and because we have to change naira to dollar, we are losing all our money. So for people who earn 30,000 naira, they can't even buy the things they used to buy.
All right, we don't have a lot of time, so let's quickly hear from Dr. Simon. What do you think about this issue? Can we actually increase the minimum wage? There are some states, like, for example, I believe Edo State just recently increased theirs to 40,000 naira. And we also have Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, also announced an increase in salaries for 100,000 public workers within the state. Do you think that this could actually be a general thing? Now, we don't have a lot of time, so you have about 30 seconds.
The truth is, we don't have fiscal space for increase in salary. And even if the salary is increased, what's the purchasing power? What's the actual capacity that the increment will buy in the market? That's nothing. And then the government has a lot of things for them to pay these salaries. And there are more important things. The larger chunk of the population is also suffering because these salaries are only for people working for the government. What about the general population? We increase salaries at the detriment of infrastructure, at the detriment of education, which everybody else fiscal space for that. It's so sad.
All right,
that's increased. What value is it?
That's quite unfortunate. Anyway, when you do talk about salary increments, you do have to think about the sustainability. It's not just about putting the word out. Can you maintain those payments? And right now, a lot of states are actually going through paucity of funds and are actually unable to do so. But anyway, at the end of the day, I feel like the government it just finds himself between the devil and the deep blue sea. It's sort of a double-edged sword for them at this point. So, but like you said, there are other issues like infrastructure, healthcare, education that the government does need to respond to. And I believe that once those things are answered to, everything else will definitely fall in place. Well, we have come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, OG, for joining us. And thank you so much, Dr. Simon, for being a part of the show. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. All you need to do is look up Trust TV News. You definitely find us there. Well, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again. Let's talk numbers.